The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Good evening and welcome to the February 13th Ask the Expert webinar. Today we're going to be talking a little bit about rosters, robot lockup on the stop build day, and a little bit about the bagging and unbagging of your robot. Again, for this one, we're doing it as a podcast. Most teams are having difficulty finding time to do anything else but build their robot with 1 week to go. So we'll do this and post it, as we always do, on the First Canada YouTube channel. So to begin with, I want to talk about stop build day. So every team should know that the robot has to be bagged and tagged, as we say, on the stop build day. Now, when you look it up, you'll see down at the bottom here on this slide, it says in the rules that it must be bagged by 0459 UTC on stop build day, and they're putting that down as Wednesday, February 21st. Now, depending on where you are, and in Canada, since this is who this is intended for, the stop build day falls on February the 20th, which is a Tuesday, and in Ontario and Quebec, we must finish and bag and tag by 11:59 p.m. In Saskatchewan, it's 10:59 p.m. In Alberta, 9:59 p.m. And in British Columbia, 8:59 p.m. Now, the first thing you need to know, in case you don't know, is that you should find all the materials that you need. You need a printout of the robot lockup form, and that is what it looks like. You can search robot lockup form on First Inspires and you will find it. It's got some of the information down here about unbagging, but essentially you have to put the date and the time, your time zone, the signature of someone who is on your team that's over 18. That's usually a mentor. The zip ties have, they're color coded red and blue usually, and they have a security seal number which you enter here, and then you print the last name and the first name of the person who's bagging, unbagging, and cell phone in case they need to be called by the person who's going to look at this, which would be your robot inspector. And then, because you can bag and then later unbag, you need to put down an L if you've locked it or U if you've unlocked it, and then any explanation. So for example, it gives you some instances of when you might do that and where it's located in the rules about what you can do. And we'll talk about the unbagging in a minute. So what you should know as well is that you can unbag your robot for demonstrations, but when you're bagging it, you do not need to put the bumpers in a bag. You could put them in a separate bag. You can put your robot in multiple bags. You should have 2 in your kit of parts. You would need a third if you're going to put it into 3 bags. But you are allowed to keep out by rule 30 pounds of your robot to continue to work on. So you want to consider that and make sure that you know what you're doing for that. Continuing on, you could decide as a team to unbag your robot. And when might you do that? Well, if you're a team in Ontario, because Ontario is in a district model, the district models have 1 fewer day of their event. So a regional model has 3 days of event, district model 2, and then there's the load in the afternoon, evening of the day before day 1. And because of that, one change to the bag and tag or the stop build is that 7 days prior to your district event, you can unbag for a total of 6 hours to work on your robot, to drive it, to work on it, and to do those other things that you might need to do. But this does not apply to regional events in Quebec, Alberta, and BC. They're on a different model. You could also unbag for other reasons. You might be going on a television show. Recently, one of our rookie teams in Toronto was on Breakfast TV, and even though this was before bag and tag, if it had occurred, if they'd gotten the booking after that point, then they could have done a demo. You might have a curriculum night or a parent night and you want to show your robot off and it doesn't fall within the build season, comes after, so you might do that. A large number of teams are going to be at the Robot Week, as I think they're calling it, at the Ontario Science Centre in Toronto during March break, during the Ontario March break, demonstrating the robots, and they'll have them out of the bag if they want to use this year's robot. One of the things that's recommended is that the drive team not be driving the robot. You may have no choice depending on the size of your team and how safe the area is to drive. For example, you might want someone on it that's you're going to be confident in that they're not going to run into some little children or spectators. But it would be appreciated, I think, that teams are not using that to either practice their driving for their drive team or working on their robot, as you can do in those 7 days before the district events. But there are more detailed rules, so you should read the rules. They're starting at R16 in the game and season manual, so that is kind of an important thing to take a look at. Now, I wanted to talk about team roster a little bit because I did notice, I can't see everybody's roster, but I did notice that there were some questions about it and there were people having some issues. So essentially, what you should know is this. At every official first event you go to, whether it's a district, regional, or world championship, if it's an official first event and you bring your team, then you are required to hand in a printed team roster. You go into your dashboard to print it, and all student members must be on it. Mentors should be on it too. Which means that you can do one of two things to include the student members of your team in the roster. The one that first recommends and would prefer is that you add youth team members electronically. And you do that by going into your dashboard and inviting students. So for example, in order to do that, you could, let me get rid of this for now. You would go into your team. So this is a team that I can get into that point. Here's where, this is a team. I guess I should show it on the correct screen. So here's a team that I could actually access. Here's where you go to print your roster to take it with you. So it has to be on paper. And here is where you would go to invite your student contacts. So you would go in here. You would choose youth team member if they're over 13. If they're under 13, then you have to invite the parent, guardian. And if you select that one, for example, it'll give you some information. So youth team member, and you can see here's some more information. You would put their full name in and then an email address. And you could add a bunch of them at a time, and then you would send that invitation, and it gets sent out as an email from what would be first headquarters. Okay, so that's what would have to happen for you. And what takes place then is once the student receives their email with their invitation, and it doesn't come directly from you, the coach, it comes from first headquarters through the dashboard system. They would have to create their own profile. Now, if this is a student that's been on the team in the past, they should be able to just log in to the dashboard that they created last year or the first year that they did that, and do the consent with their parent. If they're creating a new profile because they're a new student, or you're a new team and they're all new students to the team, then what they're going to include as part of their profile is some parent or guardian email. This then will produce its own invitation that gets sent to the parent or guardian from first, and it's based on the email that's put in 3A. They cannot be the same email, for example. So the student can put in their email and then use that same email as a parent guardian email. That will not work. So the parent creates their own dashboard, and then they give consent for the student. So when they go to give consent, essentially they're saying that pictures can be taken. So that's what happens. Now, just to make sure that it's clear, this is what it's going to sort of look like. So the parent would go in and they would have their name. This is mine. And when they click here, they should see something that's red beside it saying there needs to be a task completed. And basically they're going to go to the to one of these. It'll indicate which one, where they have to do the consent and release for the student, their child, or the child that they're the guardian of. Once that is done, then the lead coach mentor 1 or lead coach mentor 2 can accept that student on the team from the lead coach mentor 1 or lead coach mentor 2's dashboard. I would point out that sometimes I've heard, I haven't actually seen it happen, that this information, the invitation, might go to spam, but so they should check that. But they should be certainly putting an email in as a student for their parent or guardian that they know the parent or guardian is going to check. And once they do it, the email will be sent out. So they should notify their parent or guardian, oh, you're going to get an email. It's not spam, but it might show up in your spam. So can you please do that and check it off? Now, it is possible for whatever reason that it's not possible to do an email consent. Those things do happen. So one of the issues might be that you're going to do some on paper, and you can. There is a paper consent, which I'm going to show you in a second, that is online. It would be easiest if the coach mentor was to sign that, to find that, print out some copies, and provide it to the student and parent to fill out. The student hands that to the mentor. It could be lead coach mentor 1 or 2, or someone else who's doing the roster. I would suggest making copies because in Ontario you're going to need it for at least 2 events, your 2 district events. So it makes sense to photocopy it so you don't have to get the parent to redo it. So that once you print the roster now, the student's name is not going to be on it. So there's a space to handwrite some names of students who have done a paper consent at the end of the printout. You would then attach all the paper consents to the team roster's printout after you've put the names of all the students on it that had to do a paper printout. And when you go to registration at your event, you would hand in those copies. So if you have to do that, you can go to, you can search it. You can go to firstinspires.org and search for consent and release, and you will see that they have them for some of the districts, and there's Ontario. When you click on that one, you're going to get the First Canada consent and release agreement, and you would fill all that information in, your team number, it's also good to know that, and then you fill out the bottom with the signatures and date, and then you can hand it into the lead coach mentor that is running the team or running the registration of the members on the team. I hope most of what I've said is clear. You do need to have a completed team roster. It does sometimes happen that teams forget this. So hopefully you're watching this. It's going to be posted, as I said, on the First Canada YouTube channel so that you can take a look at it, and I'll put notifications out, and probably right before the first events as well, send it out as well. And every week we do a webinar, or in this case, our second podcast webinar. We ask a question that if you know the answer, because it's been said in the webinar here, and you email your answer to me at pkeenan@firstinspires.org, over the next day, I will pick one of those for you to win a First Canada hoodie. So if you are interested, could be a student, could be a mentor, please don't hesitate to answer the question, send me an email, and I'll get back to you with hopefully a prize in the very near future. If you do have any other questions, you can email me at the same email address. I've been getting emails today about different questions. If I don't know the answer, I'll find someone who does and get back to you as soon as I can. And I would also remind you that you can find a lot of the answers to your questions at the various Q&A sites. There's a Q&A for FIRST FRC teams. The information is in your Lead Mentor and Lead Mentor 2's dashboard. You can go to the FIRST Canada website and look up the help desk. We've posted on many webinars in the past. That's run by Team 1114 out of Saskatchewan, St. Catharines Symbotics, and they're happy to answer all of your questions. And you could ask teams nearby who are veteran teams. They will be happy to answer your questions. And it's a great way to get to know the teams in the area around you. So once again, thanks for listening. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to contact me.